We've been talking all morning about how dangerous this heat wave can be for our health, and staying outside too long under scorching temps can be so risky for others.
Right, so our 9 News medical expert, Dr. Pao Coley, is here with us to help break down what can happen to our bodies under this excessive heat. Good morning.
Good morning. It's already hot out there.
Yes, and this is so important to talk about. So how does our body regulate the temperatures, especially when it's this hot outside?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So our brain has a little gland called the hypothalamus that's sort of like the thermostat. So that senses the heat, and then it uses our skin and our blood vessels as sort of the air vents, so to speak. So if it gets too hot, the receptors on our skin tell the brain it's a little bit too hot. The brain adjusts the thermostat down. Our blood vessels open up, but we start to sweat and give off heat. But when it's really hot outside, the receptors don't work as well to tell the brain that it's too hot, and the air vents don't work as well to really help to cool us down because the ambient temperature is just so warm.
Oh my gosh, I've never known that actually, that that's what your body's doing.
Yeah.
What are the heat-related illnesses you're most worried about, and what are the signs of it?
You know, so we talk about heat stroke and heat exhaustion, but I actually want to mention dehydration because that's one of the most common things, and they're all on a spectrum. So if you think about dehydration kind of being the mildest, most of us have experienced that when we spend a little too long out in the sun, and we don't even realize that we're dehydrated sometimes. And the way we can tell is the color of our urine and how much urine we're making. So if your urine is starting to turn yellow, dark yellow, you're falling behind. And if you're not going to the bathroom at least every couple of hours, you're falling behind. Then the next on that spectrum is kind of the heat exhaustion, where we start to have a headache, we're a little nauseous, we're a little tired, we don't feel well, essentially. And that's when our body's starting to fail. Those kind of cooling mechanisms are starting to fail. And then, of course, the most extreme we've been talking about this morning is heat stroke. That's when you can start to have confusion and loss of consciousness. And this is a life-threatening emergency for anyone.
It's so interesting because for us, we're like, okay, we're feeling a little bit lightheaded, we need to drink water. But they're like kids, they don't really pay as much attention, or they don't know how to, like say it. So there are certain groups that are more susceptible to
this. I'm glad you brought up the kids. So kids is a big one because they don't regulate their body temperatures as efficiently. Their body sizes are a lot smaller, and they don't realize the signs of dehydration. So it's up to us to keep an eye on our children's urine output during this type of time. On the other end of the spectrum is the elderly. They're extremely susceptible as well because their mechanisms to regulate their body temperature aren't as efficient. They're often on medications like beta blockers and diuretics that can actually impair your body's ability to regulate temperature, regulate volume status. And of course, they have chronic health problems as well, like high blood pressure and such, that can make them more susceptible to the effects of this. Pregnant women is another one because they're carrying the baby as well. Their blood circulation is very different than many of the rest of us. And groups who we don't often think about, but anyone who's homeless, anyone who works outside, and any athletes who are exercising outside. Today is not a day to exercise outside at all, as much as I love exercise.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just chasing after my toddler with a water bottle like
Right,
all day for like weeks on end. Before we run out of time, talk about the pets and who is the most susceptible for a day like today.
Right, so all pets actually, and especially certain species of dogs, so like pugs and bulldogs are more susceptible. If you've got a pet that's overweight or obese, or a pet that's older, these are, again, just like humans, are not able to regulate their body temperature if they're taking any kind of medication. And with pets, it's harder to tell because just like kids, they don't tell you necessarily that they're dehydrated. So putting ice cubes in their water bowl, make sure you do that today. Make sure you're filling up their water bowl regularly, looking at their eyes and their gums to see if their eyes are sunken or their gums or their tongue looks dry. That's another way to know. And if you start to see them panting excessively, that can be a sign of heat exhaustion or heat stroke in your pet. So don't leave your pets or kids in the car, please.
Yes.
I had somebody in the office just the other day tell me, oh, the dogs aren't allowed in this building, so I left my dog in the car.
No.
And we did the visit outside near the dog. And so just make sure, no matter how much the windows are down and the AC is going, you don't leave them outside.
Yeah, good reminders. Yeah, pugs can't breathe when it's like normal, right, with that little nose. So it is a good reminder. Dr. Coley, thank you so much. And you can find all of Dr. Coley's appearances at 9news.com/Dr. Coley.